Actually kind of excited today because we're going to be trying some new stuff. I'm going to be working with a new resin, new pigments, a new mold. It'll be exciting. Hopefully everything goes to plan. Plan is we're going to make a handle for a honey dipper. These are actually from my friend Zach over at Resin Works. Aluminum honeycomb material that they use, think internal structures for like door frames and stuff. You can see it's a fairly small object. And the mold that we've got, if we were to make a full-size handle off of this mold, that would be a little bit absurd. This is a new mold that I want to try out, and you can move this section right here to make the size that you want. I think anything more than about 4 inches will be overkill. Not too bad. A pretty good fit, actually. Alright, and then I can just put this little silicone stopper in here. Put that aside. So this will be my first time using this resin. It is Moss Deep Pour Resin, and I'm going to be using these System 3 Cast Effects colorants for use in temperatures between 60 degrees and 75 degrees, which is where we're at. It is a 3-to-1 mix ratio, 3 parts resin to 1 part hardener. And given the size of the mold, we're not going to need a huge amount of it. Resin up to the first 2, and then hardener up to the second 2. Too many 2s. And now we've got 2 minutes of mixing time. If you watched the video where I made the different knife handles for Jimmy DiResta, you know that I did something similar for him, where we used the aluminum honeycomb, did an orange and a yellow. We didn't actually get to see what that looked like, and I'm super curious to what it's gonna end up like. So if any of you out there are feeling deja vu, you're like, have we done this before? Sorta, but not really. We want to do this in 2 halves. I want a yellow half and an orange half. This color is called Crater Yellow. So we're going to add a little Taps Red. How much or how little to use? Oh wow, that's strong. Okay. So a little of this goes a long way. It's good to know. It works. A gradient going on here. That, all the holes, that's kind of cool looking as the resin bubbles down into the individual holes. So I definitely want to fill this up because in the pressure pot it's going to force that down, and there might be some holes that it hasn't gone into. Oh, let's push it back. Pushed back on this side. It's like an epic battle between yellow and amber. And I was worried because the aluminum was a little larger than this, and so it actually pushed the mold out a little bit. So I put a couple rubber bands to help squeeze it in place, but I don't even know if I needed that. There's nothing leaking out. Whether or not that'll be true in the pressure pot where we, put 50 pounds of PSI down on this, I don't know. And we'll pressurize that up to 50 PSI. And let it sit for at least 24 hours. The rubber bands were a precaution, but I don't know that they were really necessary. Seems like we got a good casting. Actually looks really cool just as an object of itself here. But if you look at the honey dipper that we're putting a handle on, we should be fine. It really doesn't need to be that thick. So I'm going to trim off a little bit here on the bandsaw, and then we can take it over to the lathe. And while it's still in the clamp, I'm going to go ahead and cut some threads. This is, what is this, 10 millimeter? Let me grab the honey dipper. Oh yeah. There it goes. So, I don't know why I thought I had a mandrel that would fit that, but I don't. Okay. After a quick trip to the hardware store, I picked up a bolt, 2 nuts, and I removed, we don't need that. And then 2 of them stops it from moving. And that should be all that we need. And that should just thread right on to there. Alright, there we go. So we've got our makeshift mandrel, our blank, some tailstock support, and the tailstock. And looks like it's running pretty true. You guys know that when I turn resin, I normally reach for carbide tools, but a question that I get is, can you turn a resin project with traditional tools? The answer is absolutely. What people like and don't like about them are the exact same thing. If you have high-speed steel tools, you need to have a system for sharpening them. And you just bring the tool up and you match the bevel. And that's it. That's all we're doing. Just a quick touch-up. Again, the advantage and the disadvantage is this tool edge will dull as you turn, which means that while you're making a project, you might just have to come over here and resharpen that edge. Which means you will always have the ability to have the sharpest edge presented to the workpiece. You take it nice and slow, light cuts. So, for the record, you can turn resin and aluminum with high-speed steel. Look at that. Beautiful cut. There's no sandpaper here. That is straight off the tools. But, as I'm looking at this, I'm having a little trouble not wanting to keep this shape. Isn't that an unusual shape? Have you ever seen a handle shaped like that?
Oh, I honestly thought that you had done the flat on purpose. I think that looks really cool.
No, that's just the top of the pour.
Honestly, that's kind of an interesting shape. I like the flat.
Yeah.
I like the flat.
I think I do too. And then I'd round this end so that it matches this profile right here.
Right, that makes sense. So you don't have like a weird nubby.
Yeah. Rounded its bottom there on the power sander, and now we'll move on to hand sanding. I know it's not a very popular position, but I do have to say I enjoy the sanding process. There is something about starting off with a rough object and ending with one smoothly sanded and polished. We work through the grits. Started at 180, going through 240, 320, 400, 600, and 800. I'm going to jump over to my micro mesh pads. The ones I use at the lathe are almost worn out. Micro mesh pads have their own grit system. They run from 1500 down to 12,000. Simply go through the grits one at a time and you get an amazing smooth finish. All right, there's the last pad. Aluminum honeycomb and resin honey dipper. It came out really, really good. We got lucky. I'm not pretending that this shape is revolutionary, and I think if I turned it all the way around, it would have been probably a little too small for me. But having this oblong section in here makes it very comfortable to hold, and frankly, it gives it a very interesting look. I was a little worried with the darkness of the red side, the amber side of this, but it looks great in the final product. Honeycomb's actually a really interesting material. There's actually a different texture to it. You can feel the difference between the metal and the plastic in your hand. And if you hold it up to the light, it actually looks a lot like a honeycomb. Either we got incredibly lucky, or it was just meant to be. Oh, and one of the nice things about using threads for the handle is that the handle and the honey dipper can be separated if you want to put this in the dishwasher. And a thank you to Rockler for sponsoring this video. And if you decide you want to make this or something similar to it, the resin, the dye, the mold, the honey dipper, the tools, of course my favorite blue silicone mat, are all available on Rockler's website. And I will go ahead and put in the description a link to all the tools and materials that I used in making this video. If you would like to thumbs up this video, share it, subscribe to the channel, all that helps me out a ton. Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you next time.